Hello everybody, welcome back to my studio. This is Emma Wigington here in Cumbria in the UK, welcoming you to my beautiful studio on this lovely sunny afternoon. I'm in here, it's nice and cool because it's really quite hot out there this afternoon, so I'm quite glad to be in here making a little video. As I promised you, I said I would tell you how to do free machine embroidery without needing to use a hoop, because obviously the first one was about using a hoop, which means you've got something to hold on to while you're learning to do the free machining. So this is like the next step, if you like. It's all about keeping it simple and just having a go and not being afraid of anything, because really it's very easy to do. Once you've just had a little go, you'll go, why did I not do this years ago? It's so liberating. So what I've got here is some pieces of fabric which I'm going to show you. The first one is the top piece of fabric, which is what I tend to use is calico, just because it's fairly inexpensive and it's readily available. If you haven't got calico in, just use a piece of cotton sheeting or a piece of cotton, whatever you've got in to hand. The next layer in this little sandwich, this is a piece of, this is a piece of curtain interlining. Now this, I used to use this when I was quilting years ago as a cheap way of having the wadding in my little wall quilts that I made. So it's really inexpensive and you can buy it in all sorts of places. And it means that when you put your calico and then that on like that, you get something which is going to give you a nice sort of quilted surface. And obviously you can then add other fabrics onto the top of that. But the secret ingredient in this little sandwich is something called a stabilizer, which is basically a stiffener. I don't know if you can hear that. There. This is called stitch and tear. There's lots of other kinds out there. I'm sure there's sort of all sorts of interfacing and things that you could use, or just a really stiff piece of fabric if you've got one in. So that makes the sandwich. I'm going to put the stitch and tear down first, then the wadding, and then my piece of calico. And I'm just going to pin those together, and I'll show you what that sort of looks like when I've done that. Just pin them around the edges. There we go. There we go. So that creates something which has got a stiffness to it, and now you can use that and pop it under your needle to get stitching. The other thing you could use if you've got kicking about is a bit of old blanket. I have used that in the past as well, just with a piece of calico on top. Makes it a little bit stiff. It's not quite as good as the stitch and tear, but it's not a bad substitute. And then onto that you can add lots of different coloured fabrics. So this piece I've just done with lots of strips of coloured fabrics. Doesn't matter really which way up it goes. And I was just having a play with some free machining on there. If I show you the back, I think you might be able to see some of the stitching that I've done there. If you wanted to, you could miss out the calico layer and you could simply put your coloured fabrics on top. That sort of sandwich there of the 4 layers really gives you something stiff to hang on to while you're having a go. So I'm going to just take a piece that I have here that I prepared earlier. So on one half of this, it's got the sandwich of the stitch and tear, the curtain interlining fabric and the calico on top. And you can see I've left half of it blank, and I've just put some simple cut out pieces of fabric on there, which I'm going to free machine now and demonstrate how you go about using this in your machine. So if you just bear with me while I put the camera down close in, and then we'll get stitching, which is always the fun bit. So I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so here we are. We've got my machine and I've put the piece of fabric underneath where my needle is, and I'm going to put my presser foot down, because you must always put your presser foot down. I'm turning the machine on, which is also a really good idea. I'm going to show you how to make the first stitch again, like I did in the very first video, which is you use the wheel on your machine and you make a single stitch and you pull up the bottom thread, hopefully the bottom thread comes up. I'm actually using black thread here just so you can see, so I hope you can see that little loop there. I'm just pulling the loop that's coming up from underneath. Don't get hung up on this, okay, but this is how you start off if you don't want your threads to tangle with any of the subsequent stitching that you're going to be doing, especially if you're doing lettering or something like that. You want a nice neat start, but don't get hung up on it. It's not the end of the world if you just set off stowing. So you do a couple of little stitches and then move away from that, and I'm going to just then be able to pull up those little threads, those naughty little threads, and I'm just going to cut them like that. Then they are completely out of the way. Now I'm using, as I say, I'm using black thread just so that you can see what I'm doing. I've got hold of the fabric either side so that it's fairly taut in between my hands, and I'm just going to use my hands to move the fabric around. And you can start to see the stitching coming, and you can hear that I'm using my machine fairly quickly. This is just like I did when I showed you in the hoop, but this is now just on the different layers of fabric, keeping it stiff, and you're able to move it quite easily. I'm just going to take that pin out before it sticks in me. And it's the difference between the ratio. The important thing is the ratio between how fast you go with your engine, how fast you speed your car along here, and how fast you move the fabric. So I'm actually moving the fabric fairly slowly and letting the machine do all the work. Okay, so you can see I'm starting to do a sort of a nice set of swirls just to get it going like that. Okay, so that's fairly simple. You've got control. Anytime you want to stop, you just stop. And I'm going to show you, actually, this is a neat little trick. If you want to stitch on one bit of your piece that you're working on and you want to move to another bit, you don't have to cut the threads, you just use the wheel. You might need to lift your presser foot up to let the thread run, but remember to put it back down again. Yeah, put your presser foot back down. Now I'm just going to start off here into this coloured fabric that I've put on here, just to show what you can do when you've got some coloured fabric on as well. So I'm just going to do some little stitching onto here. Oh, I better take that pin out. Just a second. Take the pin out. Okay, so I'm holding the bits down. Just doing a bit of free machining, basically just to hold the fabric in place. And now again, I'm just moving the fabric and the machine's doing all the stitching for me. So I'm going to come to this bit now, which is a little plant pot. I'm going to take that pin out. Obviously you can put fusible webbing underneath your fabric if you want to do something that's going to be really smooth. And I'm just doing an edging around that. I've turned the fabric around so it makes it a bit easy for me to stitch. I'll do a couple of lines around that, because it always looks best if you do a couple of lines around it. And I think we'll turn these into some flowers, so we're going to do a little stem going up. Ooh. And we'll just turn that around again, just fiddle it around till you get to where you want to be. Now I'm going to take the pin out. Now I've got one lot of stitching into that. I'm going to take the pin out, and I'm just going to do some little petals going around this central piece of orange fabric like that. And I'm going to put a little niggle in, put it in the centre like that. And I might just go back down there as well. And I'm going to go back down there to make another, along a little bit, I think, to make the next stalk. And it will come with that. And once you're onto the fabric with the machining, you can take your pin out, because the fabric will stay where you want it, more or less. Obviously, sewing like this, your fabric can move a little bit, but I think that's one of the joys of free machining, is you don't have absolute control of the fabric unless you bond web it down. And here's the last flower I'm going to do now. Here we go. This is really the fun bit. Look at it. How joyful is that? Turning little bits of fabric into something quite pretty. There we go. So there's a couple of little stitches to stop it. Bring your needle up, and you should be able to hopefully pull that out and snip off your threads. Okay. So I'm going to stop it there, and I'll show you what I've got here with the camera up the other way. So if you just bear with, I'll be with you in a second. Okay, so here we are, finished doing the little bit of stitching. Please note, I do tie my hair back when I stitch, because otherwise I'm in danger of free machining my hair into the machine. So on a health and safety note, please make sure you tie your hair back. So I'm going to show you what we did there. I'll just show you this bit first. So that was the half that I did, whichever way up you want to put it. And that's just little squiggles, and that can be used for filling or just for practicing, basically. Just let the machine do the stitching and you move the fabric and get any pattern you like really. And then the other side was where I'd put the 3 little pieces of fabric and the little plant pot shape and the little base. So I've just done it simply in black thread so that you can see it better, hopefully. If I'd used colours, you might not have seen it so well. So really, it's all about having some fun. As I say, once you start getting colour into it, once you start putting some lovely fun fabrics on, get some fun threads going, and just get going. Oh yes, that was the other bit I was going to say, was when I said about joining up the 2 areas. Do you see there's a piece of thread there that's joined the 2 areas up when I went from the squiggly sewing to this bit of sewing? Okay, so I'm going to cut that off now. But that's really useful when you're joining up different bits of stitching in your piece. So I hope that's given you a little taster, and that it's given you a bit of confidence just to go and have a go, get your machine out, blow the dust off it, get it out of the garage wherever it's been sitting, borrow it from a neighbour if you need to, like I did when I very first started. I borrowed a friend's machine. I had no idea what I was doing when I did this thing, and it became free machine embroidery, and it's my greatest passion. So I hope that you've enjoyed the little video that I've done here, and it'll get you going. And I'm going to go off now and have a little think about what my next video is going to be about. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.